Hey guys, today we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing decimals. And we're going to start off with multiplying decimals. And the first thing that we need to mention is that we do not need to line up the decimals when we're multiplying. We line up the numbers all the way to the right, okay, ignoring the decimals. And then we multiply the decimals as whole numbers, okay? We're going to just pretend the decimal doesn't exist right now. When we finish multiplying the numbers and we get our product, we're going to look at the numbers we just multiplied, and we are going to count the number of spaces to the right of the decimal in each of those numbers. And then we're going to go down to our product and, starting on the right hand side, take the sum of the number of places after the decimal in each of the numbers we just multiplied and move that decimal point to the left, the total of the number of spaces in each of the numbers above. Okay? So let's look at some examples and we'll go through and see what we're talking about here. So we have 1.15 times 3.1. We start off by putting the numbers all the way to the right. Okay, we do not line up the decimals. We multiply 1.15 times 3.1, and we end up with 3565. Okay, then we see how many places after the decimal there are in each of the numbers. In this case, there's 1, 2, and in 3.1 there's 1. So 2 places in 1.15 and 1 place in 3.1 for a total of 3 decimal places. So then we start here on the right of the product and move the decimal point 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So we end up with a total answer of 3.565. Our next example, we have 0.001 times a negative 1.6. So we line up the numbers to the right. We don't line up the decimals. Okay, we multiply the numbers out. And we end up with 0016. We then go look at how many places after the decimal there are in each of the numbers. So there's 1, 2, 3 here, and 1 and 1.6 for a total of 4 decimal places. So we come down to the product, starting on the right hand side, move the decimal 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we end up with 0.0016, but since we are multiplying a positive times a negative leaves a negative answer, so we'd have a negative 0.0016 as our answer. For dividing, first let's talk about some terminology. Our dividend is the number being divided into. That's the number that's being broken up. The divisor is a number that is dividing, the number that is doing the breaking. And you can see here, here's our divisor and here's our dividend. So with decimal division, if there is a decimal in the divisor out here, we're going to move that decimal point all the way to the right. So move it all the way here, okay? And then we would need to do the same thing in the dividend. So first move it out here if you need to, and then move it in the dividend. If there is no decimal in the divisor, and there is one in the dividend, or after we've moved the decimal in the divisor and then moved it in the dividend, bring the decimal straight up. So straight on top of the division bar up here. Okay, let's look at a few examples of that. In this case, we have negative 1.4 divided by 7. So we look out here, there's no decimal in the divisor. Okay, so, but there is one in the dividend, so we bring that straight up. And then we divide the numbers normally. So 7 does not go into 1, but does go into 14, and that's twice. So 2 times 7 is 14. 14 minus 14 is 0. and we are left with 0.2 as an answer. But because we are dividing a negative by a positive, okay, that's going to make this a negative 0.2. In this example, we have negative 2.4 being divided by a negative 0.04. So we have a decimal in the divisor, so we need to move that over 2 places here, so it ends up after the 4. We have to do the same thing in the dividend. So move it over 2 places, and in this case we have to attach a 0 after that 4. So we end up having a problem that looks like 4 being divided into 240. So when we do our division, okay, 4 goes on the 24 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. We subtract, we get 0. We have to use a 0, so bring it down. 4 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. We subtract, we get 0, and we're done. Again, we bring up our decimal point. In this case, it's after all of our significant digits. So we end up with an answer of 60 in this case. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So our answer in this case is 0.60. Okay, folks, we'll get some practice with this in class, and we will see you then. Us.